Hi folks, welcome back. In this fresh set of video series, let's talk about Helm charts. So you might have already heard about these Helm charts, this is capable of doing Kubernetes automation and all those things. So we will try to understand, the Helm charts from basics to advanced level and how effectively, we can use it in the real world scenario and all those things. So before trying to use these Helm charts, let's try to understand what is the need of these Helm charts. So let's try to do a simple Kubernetes deployment. So if I know currently, let me check if there is any deployments running. There are no. So what I'll do is I'll just try to create a simple deployment called Nginx. So kubectl create deployment name with the help of image Nginx. So it will just create a deployment with one replica set by default. There you go. Now, if I check the deployment status using -o wide option, it will show me, what is the image which is currently used and how many replicas are running and all those things. So currently you can see there is only one replica set. So you can always check those details with the help of replica sets. So you can see there is only one replica set running currently. So I mean this is so far so good and everything is fantastic. So now let's try to understand what exactly that this deployment definition contains. So if I see this deployment definition, which is basically this, there you go. So you can see here, this deployment has created a label called this, and it has one replica set, and then you can see the deployment strategy, and you can always come to down section and see here what is the image you have used. All these details, you will come across. So now you have a single deployment instance, and in this particular this is let's assume this is your development environment, and this is your microservice which you have freshly developed, and you deployed it and everything is good. Now what if there is a scenario like you have your QA environment and then followed by your production environment, where the same deployment has to be deployed, but rather than one replica, you may need to have two replica sets in QA, and you may need to have three replicas in production. Again, what you will do is you will just go and create a deployment and you will do all those things, which is fine. It's just a little bit of effort. But what if I'll ask you that when you deploy it in a QA, make sure that you change the deployment strategy from rolling update to recreate, and change the max search policy from 28% to 50%, and then change the replicas from 1 to 2, and then change the image from nginx to nginx latest. That's too much to ask, right? So what you have to do is, again, you have to take this deployment and file skeleton, and take this and put all these editing and put save it in another file, and then just you go on Kubernetes, apply -f and that file name, then it will go and deploy. Similarly, in production, if I ask you to change the number of replicas from 1 to 3, and then change the image from nginx to nginx 1.25, and then max search policy change it to 75%, and number of replicas increase to 3. Again, this is again, even though it's the deployment skeleton looks same, but the configuration related to the deployment is totally differing. So again, what you will do is you will take the skeleton of this deployment file and you will modify all those things. You will save it in another file, and then you will go and deploy using kubectl apply fnf or create fnf, whatever. So it's like imperative and declarative approach. That's all. So that's too much to do, right? It's like, what if I'll tell you that you need not to every time go and define all these things. Rather than that, just define this deployment skeleton and then handle all these configurations like this replica increase and strategy and all those things in a separate file called value.yaml. In that way, you need not to write all these skeleton every time for separately for your dev, separately for QA, separately for production. Rather than that, Just define it once and then reuse this skeleton for in all three deployments with whatever the configurations additionally required that you can handle it in a separate file called value.yaml. That's fantastic, right? That is what your Helm is going to do. So in a nutshell, Helm will make you to you know reuse your code base so that you define once as a form of an skeleton and then reuse the same skeleton with an additional stuff whatever you want to add for that. So that's simple about like this is what the Helm chart. Is it the only thing Helm chart is? No, I mean it's much more than that, but in a nutshell this is what the Helm chart is. So now the next question is how to create these Helm charts. So now that you told me that okay, this is capable of doing all these things, tell me how to do it. So let's do that. So what we will do is now we have created a deployment, right? Let's delete that deployment first. Okay, before that, let's try to understand the same thing whatever I told in a more pictorial manner. So if you see here in this particular diagram, so let's assume you have your dev environment where you have defined your deployment.yaml, whatever I shown the same. Let's take an example of Nginx where you have created your deployment.yaml. There, you have mentioned all your replica information, your resource information, all those things, image information and all. Similarly, you have used your config.yaml where you are supplying some, tuning some kind of an Nginx configuration, and then you're using secret.yaml for some kind of an application secret, and then you're creating a persistent volume claim of say around 4 GB in dev. So this is a deployment specification specific to dev, and you will go and deploy it using kubectl-f, and it's well and good. Now again, if somebody comes and tells you that okay, now that your image is ready, I want to deploy the same image in QA but with some additional specification like the deployment replica should be 2, and in the config.yaml as well change some of the configuration specific to QA, and then in the secret as well change the secret whatever you kept in dev separately to QA, and then persistent volume claim as well change it from 2 GB to 4 GB. So that's again totally what you will do. Again, you will copy those, deployment.yaml, config.yaml, secret.yaml, PVC, and you will paste it here and you will modify everything and then you will deploy it for QA. Similarly, for production, the requirement could be changed. Like PVC might be, asked for 6 GB and the number of replicas in deployment could be around 3 or 4. What you will do again, you will go and modify the same skeleton, then you will do kubectl apply-f and you will deploy. So what if I tell you you need not to do all these things, just define the deployment config, secret, and PVC YAML structure at one place, and then whatever the value you want to change, you change it in a separate file called value.yaml. Of course, you can give the naming convention according to you, it's like the dev underscore value, QA underscore value, prod underscore value. Here you are mentioning the information specific to this environment. In dev, what you will do, you will give the information like okay, the number of replicas should be 1, PVC size should be 2 GB. Similarly, in QA, you will number of replicas you will increase to 2, and the PVC size you will increase to 4 GB, and the secret as well you will define separately as per the QA requirement. And then in prod, number of replicas you will increase to 3, and then change the PVC size from 4 GB to 8 GB, and then the config as well as secret definition is totally different. That's easier, right? So rather than redefining everything, you define at one place and then override the values whatever you want to override specific to that environment using a concept called as a value.yaml. So that's the capability of Helm. So now let's try to understand how to create this Helm charts through one example. So what I'll do is uh, so before that, you just need to install the Helm in your environment. So in order to do that, go to the official documentation. So if you go here, docs home, and below that introduction, you have this quick start guide. Below that, installing the Helm. So Helm can be installed in multiple ways as per your environment specific specifications based. So if you are using Windows, then you have your installing instructions as per the Windows. If you are using Mac, using a Brew install Helm. It's a straightforward approach. If you're using Windows, you have options here to install in Windows, and if you're using Ubuntu based and Debian based operating system, all you need to do is download that specific repo and edit it with a signature, and then update the packages repo and then install the Helm. Straightforward approach. So which is self-explanatory, and in my case I've already installed the Helm. So again, I'm not going to do that because the installing instructions are straightforward. You need not to put any sort of big effort here to install the Helm. So now that Helm is already installed, you can see here the version of Helm. It's like 3.16.4. So that's about installing the Helm. So now let's come back and let's create our first Helm chart. Helm create my chart. In this case, my chart is the name of my chart. Whatever the name you want, you can give. It's up to you. So now if you see, it has created a chart called my chart. Let's go inside my chart and you will see some of these stuffs automatically created. You will see a file called as value.yaml. You will see a directory called templates. You will see a file called charts.yaml, and then you will see a directory called charts. So now let's try to understand one by one. So first let's open this chart.yaml and try to understand more. So what is this chart.yaml? This chart.yaml is a file which gives a metadata kind of an information about this chart, or basically overall information about chart in a nutshell. Like for example, what is the API version you're using in this particular chart? So chart basically the grouping of all these templates and making it as a one package. That's about this chart. So the name of the chart, basically, usually your release name, like when you install the Helm, this is the name usually it's going to be appeared here. It's like my chart, and then description about your Helm chart. What is this Helm chart is doing, and all those things you can always go back and give here. What kind of Helm chart it is? It's an application Helm chart. The version of the Helm chart. This is again, if you want to start with 1.0.0, 2.0, it's totally up to you. And then the API version, basically your app version. In my case, it's when you default, when you create Helm create and whatever the name you give, right? By default, it creates a Nginx chat. So the application version of the Nginx, that is what it is mentioned here, the chat version. Sorry, the application version of that chat. So by minimum, these four fields or five fields will be given for the chat.yaml. Again, don't worry, when we come across with multiple examples, again these concepts will also clear. It's just a beginning. I will make sure that give you sufficient number of examples so that you will completely grasp the concept mentioned here. So that's about chat.yaml, and then you have something called as value.yaml. Here you are giving specification for the entire nginx. If you see here, you can see how many number of replicas your nginx is containing, and what is the image repository, the image tag, and then service account. If you want to create a service account, if you don't want to create, you can always give it as a false. And then the by default you want to install the ingress or not. And then service, by default it will create a cluster type kind of a service with the port 80. And then readiness and liveness pro values, node selector, blah blah, all those things. And then the resource section, by default it is disabled. If you want to enable, just remove this comment, it will enable and it will deploy. That's the specification. And if you want to enable the auto scale, change it from false to true. Basically, the configuration related to nginx, everything is mentioned inside this value.yaml. This is what I was mentioning in my previous example. Like, if suppose you want for a dev to increase the number of replicas to 2, you can handle here in this value.yaml. Copy this file as one more, like copy value.yaml to dev underscore value.yaml, and then when you install the Helm charts, apply that. Similarly, if you want to install it for QA, copy this value.yaml to QA underscore value.yaml. There you change the replicas from 1 to 2. Don't worry, I'll demonstrate whatever I'm trying to explain with one sufficient example as well. I'm just telling you at the high level what you can do with this and how you can play around with this value.yaml. So that is that's all about your value.yaml. Now this is the interesting directory. So this is the directory where you will keep all your Kubernetes resource definitions. whether it's a deployment.yaml, whether it's ingress.yaml, it's a service account.yaml, service.yaml, all those definitions, everything, you will write it here. So what we will do here, since we are generating our first Helm charts, everything by our own, I mean, there is one two special files here, notes.txt and underscore helpers.tpl. Don't worry, I have a dedicated session to explain these two in detail. I'll explain in that particular video. So right now, what I'll do is I'll remove all these things, okay, and we'll generate our chart from the scratch. We just, took the skeleton, okay, which is this is how it looks like, a typical chart consisting of value.yaml, chart.yaml, then templates.directory. Also there is a directory called charts. So what is this charts.directory? Since this itself is a chart, then in addition to that, what is this charts.directory? So let's assume that this nginx chart has a dependency of any another Helm chart. So that is what you're going to specify inside this charts directory. Currently if you see here, it doesn't have dependency on any other charts. So that is the reason why, So for example, let me give you an ideal real world scenario. Let's assume you have defined a microservice, okay? You have, come up with one sample web application where, you have your own front end and back end. So for the back end, you have done something, you are, making sure you're connecting to database and all, but some stuffs you want to do caching at your own, application itself. So temporarily you want to cache, say around 500 MB or 600 MB data. So at that time you need a Redis. Now how can I install the Redis? So what I'll do is the Redis installation Helm chart, I'll put it inside this charts directory so that when you install your microservice, it ensures that first Redis is installed and then it refers that Redis details inside your microservice value.yaml and it ensures that it installs that. So this is also called as a subchart. I have a separate session scheduled to explain you about the subcharts. So don't worry about that. I'm just giving you high level explanation now, and I'll ensure that each and every concepts about subcharts, our dependency charts, everything with the global values, everything understood in detail. So at this moment, ignore this. Better we'll delete itself this particular directory, and we'll keep it very simple. That's it. So what I did is I just did Helm create and then my chart, and then when I created my chart, inside that my chart directory I have value.yaml, chart.yaml, and the templates. Inside templates everything I have removed, so it's empty. Now what I'll do in front of you, I will generate everything from the scratch. So now what I'll do, I will create a deployment definition for my application, which is njnx, using image njnx, okay, hyphen dry run is equal to grind hyphen yaml. When I run this command, what it does is it prepares a deployment definition for nginx. So what I'll do, I'll redirect this into a file called as, you know deployment dot yaml. There you go. Now what I'll do, I'll move this deployment dot yaml inside templates directory. Good. Now what I'll do, inside the charts, I'll get rid of all this additional information. I'll keep it very minimal so that it's very easy for you guys to understand. So this is my Helm chart, and description, what I'll do is I will write in my own way whatever the description I need. My first Helm chart with nginx, and the type is application, and then version, what I'll do is I'll mention my chart version as 1.1.0, okay, and then the app version, let it be so 1.16.0. Now I'm saving this file. Now what I'll do inside, I'll remove this value.file as well. I don't need this as well because I have a separate session to explain that. So the bare minimum, all you need is chart.yaml, and then templates. Within the templates currently I just have a deployment.yaml. YAML. So currently in the chat, what did I define? I just defined this much. It's just, the chat version and then the app version. So now what I'll do, I'll come back one step. Now I have all my chat details here. Now let's try to install. Now let me see if there is any Helm chat currently installed. I cannot see anything. Now what is the command to install this chat? Now Helm install and then the release name. What release name I want to give. When I install this chat, how Helm will identify with what name. So what I'll do is I'll give same name whatever as my chat. Maybe my chat. Okay. Don't get confused or else what I'll do is nginx. Usually the typical standard is whatever you give inside the chart name, right? Usually we do that. So what I'll do is I will go inside my chat and chat name. What I will do, I will change it to ginx nginx chat. Okay, this is what I am going to use. So what I'll do now, I'll come back and now I have this. So now Helm install nginx chat from my current directory, my chat. Let's give a couple of minutes, I mean seconds. There you go. You can see here the name of the chat and then when it was deployed, the namespace, the status of the deployment, revision, everything. Now what I'll do is using the helm list command, I'll list my chat details. So there you go. This is my chat, which namespace it is running, what is the current revision, when it is deployed or updated, what is the current status, what is the chat full name, and the app version. Now what I'll do, I'll just go kubectl get parts. There you go. It's working. Now let's try to play around with this chat. So now what I'll do, I'll go inside this chat. Okay. Now what I'll do is I'll try to create a it's created a deployment, right? So it's created a deployment named Nginx. Now what I'll do inside the templates, okay, this is the place where I have kept my deployment.yaml, right? Let me create a service file for this. So for that, kubectl expose deployment name, which is nginx hyphen hyphen port equal to 80 and then hyphen hyphen dry run equal to client hyphen o yaml. Let's see if it is generating a service file or not. There you go. It is generating a service file. So what I'll do, I will change it. I mean, I'll redirect into a file called service.yaml and I'll keep it inside the templates directory. So now what I have done, I have modified my chart. That means I have introduced a new stuff into my chart. So my chart is modified. Now what I'll do, I'll go to charts.yaml. I will ensure that the version of the chart is changed from 1.1 to 1.2, right? That's what I did it. Now what I'll do, I will come, since I have already installed this chart, all I can do is now just upgrading this chart. So for that also there is a command. Okay, so where is my chat? Here it is. Helm upgrade hyphen hyphen install. What is my release name? My release name is this, which is nginx chat. Okay, using what? Using my chat. Now what I'll do, I'll specifically mention my chat details, I mean the version details using this command. That is what an additional parameter. I mean, even if you don't give as well, since you're doing upgrade, it will automatically pick. But I'm just introducing you to another stuff, another feature as well, that if you want to explicitly install, you can give it using hyphen hyphen version is equal to 1.2.0. Now let's give couple of seconds. There you go. So if you see here, compared to previous and now, the revision got changed where it is. Earlier, if you see revision is 1, now the revision is 2, and deployment, other things, everything. Now what we will do is Helm list. There you go. It is showing you the revision details and all other things, the chart version, which is now 1.2.0. Now let's check kubectl get deployment, comma, parts, comma, svc. There you go. So what it installed. So it has installed a deployment. Okay. Since deployment was already installed, it has not done again. So the pod was also already running. So Helm will ensure that the stuffs which are already running, it is not going to touch unless you modify something inside that. So we have not modified anything inside a deployment.yaml. So it is going to keep as it is. Now all I did and additionally is introduction of a service which was present inside my template. So you can see here it has created a Nginx service 40 seconds back. That's simple, I mean, like, that's the beauty of Helm. It ensures that only the modified stuffs it will pick up and it will deploy. So this is this is how a simple Nginx Helm chart we have deployed, and this is how the Helm charts you can create and play around. Now let's try to understand few more stuffs here. So when I did Helm list here, right? So it was showing me that it's a revision 2 and all these things. Now all of suddenly you realize that you don't need this change. You want to revert it back to previous state. How can I do that? Do I need to do go to templates directory, remove that service.yaml, again I do Helm upgrade? I'm not saying that it will not work. Definitely that approach will work, but that's too big process, right? So what should I do? Simple. What you do is Helm rollback. So now I don't know full syntax. What should I do? Give help. It will give you, how to use this. You can see here Helm rollback, your release name, and then the revision name. So now what I'll do Helm list. That will give me my release name, which is this, and the current revision. Now what I need to do? I want to roll it back to the previous state without this service. So what Helm will do is Helm rollback, and then the release name, which is this, and what is the revision? 1. Let's give a couple of seconds and see what is the result. There you go. Helm rollback was success. Now let's do one thing. Let's list the deployment parts and service. There you go. Deployment was already running, so no modification for that. However, if you see in the service section, I don't have Nginx service here. So that means it ensured that it has moved back to the revision 1 where the Nginx state was like without service. So that's the beauty of Helm. If you want, so what we have, to summarize what we have done in this particular session, we have created our first Helm chart, and then we have removed everything. We all we did is we just took the skeleton of Helm and we gave the explanation about each field, what it does, and then we created our own chart version with the minimum details like the API version, the chart name, description, version, API, all those things. And then we created inside a template. Initially, we started with our own deployment.yaml file. That is in the first revision. We did the Helm install and we installed that chart. We checked how to check the status of that Helm chart and all those things. And then what we did, we made the modification to that Helm chart. We learned about Helm upgrade command as well, like how to upgrade the existing Helm chart. And then we even learned about how to roll back the existing chart and go back to the previous state. So that's too much, right, for a particular session. So but in a way we understood a basic stuff about the Helm, how to play around with this. I mean, there is nothing much to explain in terms of an architecture, how it evolved and all. You don't need all those things to understand, because if we need to talk about that, earlier we had Helm 2. It was having a server and a client component separately, Helm, and then a component called as tiller and all those things. But it also got certified from the cloud native stuffs, and over a period of time Helm is also progressed, and it's quite a stable product now. So Again, this Helm can be used with almost all the CI/CD pipelines, whether in terms of in GitHub Actions or cloud build, cloud deploy, or Jenkins. One other popular choice. This can be even worked with customize. So even when you do customize along with the Helm charts as well, you can do that. So if you don't know about customize, I have recorded a separate series in my channel. Always you can. I think it's just 3 to 4 video series. It's like where you will understand from beginning to at most advanced usage of customize. So you can always go back and see it. So that's about this particular session. In the next session, we will try to understand the Helm objects, the built-in objects, like in terms of release name, release namespace, release service, all those things. And then even we will try to understand how we can use the value.yaml, and whatever we have explained in the introduction session about deploying it to 3 different environments, we'll literally achieve that and then we'll demonstrate it. So that's about the next session. So subsequent to that, we'll even touch base about Helm functions, and then we'll touch about Helm controls, flow controls in the Helm chart, and then we'll talk about how what are the repository options for the Helm, how you can store these Helm charts and where you can store these Helm charts. And also we'll try to learn how to deal with the public Helm charts, those basically the Helm charts which are stored in a public repos. Suppose if you take an example like the Grafana or Prometheus or Cert Manager, any other open source component which you want to install, or even the enterprise softwares as well, if you want to install it using Helm charts, how to deal with that, how to customize it, and according to your business requirement, all those things we'll see in the upcoming session. Thank you so much, folks. Please do subscribe to my channel and support me. See you in the next video.